All right, blood bathers, here we go with the second part of that conversation between me and Bloodbath Krista. Previously on the Bloodbath 2 podcast, we discussed basically race and wrestling. This time we're going to be looking at, and we're a little late, we know. We try to be as topical as we can, but we're busy folks. We're looking at the Comic-Con trailers for Dawn of Justice and the Suicide Squad. Please, as we said before, if you do not agree with us, if you want to argue, critique, or debate us, that is fine. We are completely open to that, and I really mean that. We are not afraid of negative criticisms at all. We want to engage our audience, and you can contact us through the following ways. Bloodbath2podcast@gmail.com. That's the numeral 2. You can contact us on our Facebook page just by searching Bloodbath2 Podcast. We're on Tumblr at bloodbath2podcast.tumblr.com. We're on Twitter at Bloodbath2Pod. And we have a YouTube channel, which is Bloodbath2 Podcast. In every one of those, like I said, it is the numeral 2. You don't have to spell 2 out. If you want to get in touch with us, please do it. Come by, say hello, or go tell us, to go to hell. We don't know what we're talking about. We have a basic rule for interaction, though, which is if you want to be negative and critical towards us, that is fine. We are completely open to it. God knows we are critical and negative of everything as well. We just ask that you either do it intelligently or do it and be entertaining. We will not actually respond to trolling and basic insults if they don't at least make us chuckle or make us think. And that's what we would like. We would like to, have thought-provoking conversations or funny as hell conversations about these kinds of things. We're kind of weird. We like taking these things very seriously, and we like not taking them seriously at all. We're very contradictory that way. And if you'd like to positively support us, again, you can contact us through all of those areas: Facebook, Tumblr, you contact us through email or YouTube, however you want it. We do ask that if you do really want to support us, you go to iTunes, you subscribe, you download, you rate us, and then you write a review. Please. It is the best and easiest way for us to get new listeners, and that is by far what the best thing for this podcast at this point. We just need to expand, and we cannot expand without your help, the blood-bathing audience. I wonder how long it's going to be before we get in trouble for having such a gory type title. But anyway, and then after iTunes, if you want to financially help out the podcast, you can also do that. And the way you can do that is if you go to Amazon. We have a wish list up there. And right now that wish list is strictly technical equipment, some mic stands, pop filters. I mean, as you can see, at this point in our podcast, if you've been listening, we're not the most technically savvy. We're working on a pretty basic setup. We have a good mixer. The microphones are okay, but we record all these basically holding the microphones in our hand. And yes, I know the audio can be extremely aggravating sometimes, especially when we're trying to move around and get adjusted and get all this popping in the microphones, and, it picks up the rustling of our clothes. We want to get away from that, obviously. We're aware of it. I mean, I'm really aware of it because I'm the one that edits these, so I listen to these podcasts multiple times. So I know that's an issue. So what you can do, you can help us out. Neither me nor my co-host are particularly financially well off. So yes, you can help us out financially by, buy us a microphone stand, buy us a pop filter. That would be outstanding. And as we go, there's probably going to be some other things on that wish list too that you could help us out with, maybe if you want to. If you got a couple of extra bucks at this point, it'd be great. We would appreciate it. Here we go. Take it away, guys.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from the planet Krypton. came to Earth with amazing physical powers far beyond those of mortal men, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, wages a never-ending battle for truth and justice.
Say, this is good eating. I must have been hungry.
Well, good. I'll fix some more sandwiches.
No, don't make any more for me, Bruce. I'm full.
Keep working, Bruce. I'll eat Mr. Kent's share.
Okay, Dick. If you can take it, I can dish it up.
You keep dishing, chump, and I'll keep taking.
Where do you put it all, Dick?
Oh, I'm a growing boy, didn't you know? Or maybe the fire gave me an appetite.
Oh, don't remind me of that. For once, I really thought we were done for.
Well, me too. And we would have been if not for Superman.
Hey, that reminds me. I didn't thank you, Clark.
Oh, forget it, Bruce.
Huh? What are you thanking him for?
Why, because Well, that's a fine question to ask. Didn't Clark find and identify that recording of Jones's voice I left behind?
Oh, that's right. And then he turned over the info to Superman, huh?
Well, that's about right, huh? Hey, Clark?
Yeah, well, something like that.
Something like that's good.
Hey, what are you two laughing about?
Who, me?
Yes, you. There's something going on that I don't know about. Now, what is?
Well,
Maybe we'll tell you sometime.
yes, maybe.
Oh, come on, tell me now.
No can do, sonny boy, so forget it. Now we
Maybe I can guess.
Don't bother, Dick.
forget it, I said.
Oh, well, isn't that nice? Ah, that Superman. You know, he's a lad after my own heart.
And mine.
Holy smokes.
What's the matter, Clark?
Oh, a fine newspaper reporter I am. Here I got a big scoop, but instead of rushing into the Daily Planet, I sit here idly playing tiddlywinks with you guys.
Hey, wait a
Out
minute.
of my way, I've got to fly. And I do mean fly. So long, chums.
So long, Mr. Kent, and thanks.
Yeah, thanks and happy landings, Clark. Call me anytime. So long.
Look, we've been gone for like 3 weeks, and things have
God
happened.
damn it.
And this is topical, and it's supposedly something we're interested in. And I know you're like resistant to everything about it, but you should explain why for people.
I'm just trying
Because
to pretend like these movies aren't happening.
now what we're talking about specifically is, you know, Batman v Superman.
It should be versus. Versus. There's an
Well, they're
S.
trying to make it ambiguous as to whether the V stands for versus or not. Like,
What the fuck else would the V stand for?
I don't know.
In that context.
I don't know.
Valiant?
Could be.
Verbose? Virulent? Voracious?
I don't know.
Fuck you, Warner Brothers.
Fuck you, Warner.
Fuck you, Warner Brothers.
And Suicide Squad. Now,
Eh.
let's do Batman v Superman. So the Comic-Con had the trailer that showed the fight, some of the fight scene, and Lex, and you know, what's his name is Luthor, and okay,
Shitbag is Luthor.
here's my
Steve Jobs.
here's the first thing. No, Zuckerberg.
No, I know, but he's like Steve. They're making him Steve Jobsy.
Yes. Well, they're making him that kind of. So, well, that makes sense. I mean, to make it topical, but like,
You don't have to make it topical. He's fucking Lex Luthor. Everybody knows who that character is.
first of all, the thing that immediately I thought was striking about the Batman, the Dawn of Justice trailer, was how
Dawn of
completely overwrought it was,
Mm-hmm.
and how. Now, I'm not expecting a lot of subtlety here and a lot of nuance,
But it was super serious.
but the fact that it was so on the surface, showing you what this movie is.
It's completely on the nose all the time.
It's completely on the nose, and I was thinking about what is it deep down that is really bothering me about Ben Affleck in this role. Now, we talked about it briefly before about the fact that the main problem is, as good as you want to say Ben is going to be,
He's still Ben Affleck.
you cannot look at him and not see Ben Affleck.
Yep.
That is the problem, not necessarily with a good versus a bad actor, but the fact that he is an A-list
He's a
celebrity.
name.
He is such a name. It doesn't. He's going to have to work so hard, and they're going to have to work so hard to convince me it's not Ben Affleck.
I shouldn't look at Batman and hear, what, like the back of a Volkswagen in my head.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. What I realized rewatching the trailer a couple times, he's not getting the character, and I'll tell you.
No, he doesn't understand Bruce.
And I'll tell you why.
He just sulks.
All the scenes of him acting or whatever, he is very obviously portraying the emotion that he's having.
Mm-hmm.
Batman, Bruce
Very
Wayne,
restrained.
the character, is a very restrained person. Now, you might think that's strange if you only know a couple things like, say, The Dark Knight Returns or whatever, but Batman is actually an internalized character.
That's why he can be such a bastard to everybody.
He is not over-the-top melodramatic.
Not at all.
Now, you look at the better
depictions of him. Take, for instance, Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's portrayal is completely internal, and it is very subtle. One of the best performances in that Tim Burton Batman is when he relives his parents' death, and he realizes that the Joker is the person that killed them, and it starts with him just like turning away, and it goes into the memory, and then he turns and looks back when the memory is over, and there's such small moments, but that is. You look in his eyes. That is Bruce Wayne. That is Batman. You do realize that people are sitting here being like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Michael Keaton's Batman was crazy, man.
Well, he was a little crazy, but
it's a Tim Burton movie. Everything's a little weird.
But that's also why in that movie when he does that freak out in Vicky Vale's apartment, let's get nuts.
Let's get nuts.
It actually seems out of place.
It does because with the rest of his performance.
But that's the point in that moment is that he's actually trying to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's Bruce being something.
And if you've watched all the animated stuff, in particular, the Justice League animated shows, he is so understated in everything he does. Kevin Conroy plays him
brilliantly.
Like I said, with the Justice League more so than the animated show of Batman alone. He plays him very pulled back from the rest of them.
And it has to do with the fact that Batman never really is a full part of the Justice League. He doesn't trust any of them. Because while all of that's going on, he's gathering all of his intel for Tower of Babel.
Right, exactly. But the scene in the trailer where Ben is like staring up, distraught over the destruction.
He's making sucked in bitch face.
You're like, really?
Bitch face.
Like, Snyder, you are directing this way too on the surface because
he directs
not
everything
Batman.
on the surface.
Well, there were elements of Man of Steel that I felt he got correct.
They're called Henry Cavill.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. Maybe it was more the actors than the director.
But the fact that he tried to shoot the movie like a comic book and actually kind of failed in most ways.
Yes.
I see why people have problems with that movie. I'm able to overlook a lot of it just because I love Henry as Clark so much.
And the good things in that movie are really good.
Yes. Lawrence Fishburne as Perry, for example. Phenomenal.
Russell Crowe is phenomenal.
Oh, people are going to get mad at you for that one.
I don't care. I think he was great. I loved all the Krypton stuff in that movie.
Me too.
Immensely.
I loved Zod. I thought he was phenomenal.
It was great. And I like Henry. Honestly, looking back on it, because I've watched it a couple times since.
Performances were better than the actual movie, I think.
And that's
fine.
That's fine. That works.
But if you show me like a movie that's supposed to have, Superman and Batman meeting for the first time, and your Batman is, Matt Damon's sidekick, fuck you. I don't believe him as Bruce Wayne for a second. He's just moodily staring into the camera the whole time. I'm like, did you just fart and are you smelling it? Like what's happening?
In a very obvious way.
Like,
at least
I'm angry and outraged and bleh.
At least according to what we're seeing in the trailers. Now, we have to leave room open that maybe
you have to leave room open.
There are going to be things in the actual movie that are not this over the top.
I am telling you, this movie is going to be garbage. Can we have a moment? Can we have a hashtag garbage moment?
Do you want? Go ahead. Go for it.
Can I talk about Gal Gadot, please?
Oh, God. I was going to get to that next.
Yes,
you want to start?
I really enjoy when Wonder Woman always looks like a popsicle stick. And that's no hate against Gal Gadot. She's very slender naturally. But when she was cast as Wonder Woman, I was like, son of a bitch, she's going to be a supermodel in a fucking leotard. And sure enough, they show her for about 2 seconds. I don't believe that she could kick anybody's ass. And with Diana, you have to be actually kind of afraid of her.
At least with the version they're going. I was thinking about this because I have the same problem. Gal Gadot, when I've seen the stills and what I've seen in the trailer, I don't see it. And part of it has to do...
see it.
Part of it has to do with her physical presence. Now,
again, no hate against her. She's a very slender woman naturally. You can be a great actress, and she could be a great person, and she could still not be a good fit.
She
for this
should
role.
look like Lucy Lawless.
Now the thing about it is I went back, and part of this is because I'm doing research for our DC one, our DC Crisis series.
Crisis.
And I was looking at, in particular, the George Perez Wonder Woman.
Yep.
Now, the George Perez Wonder Woman isn't that far removed from Gal Gadot.
Oh, no, she's got like 30 pounds on her.
I would not go 30 pounds.
I would.
Maybe we'll need to do a visual comparison of this.
You got to look at her entire girth, including her shoulders and her legs. Trust me.
Okay. I mean, to me, it didn't seem like... Now, in the trailer, she's got the armor and she's being all intense. You don't get a good look. But what I've noticed is like those stills they've been showing of her in the white dress. And I'm like, she does not look like a fighter.
She
right?
looks like a supermodel.
She looks like a model.
Diana is not a supermodel.
She can be both. And I think that's important. You have to have a level of attractiveness with Diana.
But that's not to say she should be more athletic. She should look like fucking Ronda Rousey, for Christ's sake.
Exactly.
Who can kick your ass and is gorgeous.
Right. But that's an athlete. Ronda's an athlete.
God, son of a bitch, I'm forgetting her name. The woman who is in Firefly who voiced Wonder Woman in the DC online game. Gina Torres, for example, it would be a perfect.
Gina Torres would have been a good Wonder Woman.
A great Wonder Woman.
She
has the right body.
Too old now.
Yeah, she is too old. Well, she's also, too quote unquote ethnic for Hollywood to ever play Wonder Woman.
Yeah, they would never go that route. Although you could have easily cast her in other roles. She could be Artemis.
Mm-hmm. She could be Diana. Like she
could. She definitely could have been Diana.
Could do it. No question.
So yeah. Now in relation to that, this is something you blew up about a week or so ago, in which Grant Morrison, who we tend to really support because he's kind of on the same wavelength we are in a lot of things, both
for the most
creatively and socially.
He was like, I don't see it. I just don't see it.
He wasn't necessarily talking about her physicality, but what he was talking about is he is uncomfortable with the overly martial quality.
How aggressive and warlike she is.
Warlike in particular.
Now, Diana is a warrior, but she's not warlike. And there's a difference. When she is warlike, it's really scary, like in Flashpoint, for example.
Right. Or even most recently in the Brian Azzarello run, which has,
another
good and bad.
Another good example, Kingdom Come.
Or Kingdom Come, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Alex Ross, you should read it.
But the thing of it is that I've read all of Wonder Woman. Like, I haven't read all her appearances.
You're insane.
But I've read all of Wonder Woman, the title. This is something comic book fans, like to forget about and not discuss, is that for the vast publishing majority of that character, she was not warlike.
She is actually a pacifist.
Period. There's violence in her stories, but easily for the entire Golden Age and for most of the Silver Age, although the Silver Age issue, they water her down. But she is a problem solver. She uses her wits and her powers in creative ways in order to actually do the right thing.
She has the wisdom of Athena.
Right. So, like,
she doesn't just have the strength of Hercules, boys and girls.
Right.
She's also wise, and she's supposed to bring the wisdom of the Amazons to Patriarch's world.
Right, which doesn't mean getting out a sword and cutting people in half every 10 minutes.
That's exactly the opposite, as a matter of fact.
Well, it's a very patriarchal way of portraying a certain kind of character.
And when you portray her like that, when you portray her like running around with a sword, chopping people in half, then and only then do I have a problem with her running around with no pants on.
Yeah, because then
she's now an object.
It's very obviously also a complete male character, like male fantasy character.
Yep.
Because you're getting the titillation, and you're getting titillation in both ways. You're getting the Eros and the Thanatos.
Ooh, a strong, powerful woman with her butt cheeks out.
And watch her, kill people.
And it's just and you see it even with George Perez. Like, she runs around in basically a thong sometimes.
Well, like I said before.
And there's just booties in your face everywhere. And I'm like, really, dude?
It's George Perez that really shrinks the bikini.
Yeah,
so,
little bit. And that happens, and I realize that's a thing. But as I think I've said before on the podcast, you tell Diana she has to wear pants and see what happens.
The thing about Wolfman and Perez with the reboot is that which is the post-crisis Wonder Woman, she is varied. She has a lot of the aspects that you've seen in the character up until then kind of distilled. That's what makes like the post-crisis like Trinity really cool.
But anyone who thinks that Wonder Woman is, the Wonder Woman who's A, in DC publishing history, and B, if you want to argue with me that doesn't matter, which is fair, anyone who actually likes the Wonder Woman in the trailer can argue one of two things. They can argue, oh, the comic history doesn't matter, and it's
which
just...
they won't. They won't argue.
Yeah, and it's just the movie canon. Or you can just say, like, you should just relax.
Right.
And like, or you can say, like, no, you're actually wrong. She is warlike. My answer to the second one would be read the Hiketea and tell me she's warlike.
Yeah. Hiketea is probably
by Greg Rucka, who writes Lazarus, that most of you love. You should read this.
I am going to go out on a limb here and say that the Hiketea is probably the best, top 3 Wonder Woman stories of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The Hiketea.
I like A League of One as well.
A League of One is fantastic, but
she incapacitates the entire Justice League to save them.
Okay, here's where I was going to go with the Hiketea: is that violence, the warrior mentality of the Amazons and of Diana, is to use violence in the right way, appropriate force for appropriate action.
And you see struggle amongst the Amazons because there's a spectrum of warlike qualities within the population.
Right, especially when you get like the Lost Tribes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. When they're like, no, I'm going to murder Steve Trevor, he shouldn't be here.
Right. Or you have that uncomfortable. I think it's in the Phil Jimenez run with the dark-skinned Amazons return.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's pretty awkward.
And then
they live on the uncivilized part of the island.
And Brian Azzarello introduces the male Amazons. Anyway, yeah, it's a bit problematic.
Thanks, Brian.
But yeah, Diana.
No one thought of that before.
Diana uses violence in as
a last resort.
As a last resort, she is a warrior in the true sense of the term.
And it troubles her when she has to resort to that
because it is something ultimately patriarchal.
And it's a consideration for her.
Right.
And the Hiketea has her struggling through the whole story with like, where's the line?
Where's the line? How do you do good in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Because she has to honor a code to defend somebody against Batman.
Yeah.
And also, for all you people that like to argue who would win, Batman or Superman, just so you know...
The answer is Wonder Woman.
The answer is Wonder Woman, because the Wonder Woman completely owns Bruce in that book.
Yep.
And also, like you mentioned, the League of One, she owns the entire Justice League in a couple pages.
As you've mentioned before, Clark is not trained. Diana is trained. She kicks his ass constantly.
Yeah, so I was arguing with somebody about this online because they were like...
That sentence never ends well.
I'm sorry.
I was arguing with this person online.
I'm sorry, because comic fans think if they've been reading since, like, the beginning of the New 52, for instance, that they know what characters are about and stuff. And I really hate the conversations of like who would win, and because the answer is the writer. Like,
the answer is it totally depends on the situation.
If you know how to write it, you can make Plastic Man beat Darkseid. It's just it's
I would love to see that.
Great idea, right?
Who said, was it in a comic or was it a writer?
It's Batman.
Who said Eel could kill us all?
Eel could kill us all.
Really,
he didn't realize how powerful he was.
Really think about how terrifying.
And wasn't that in Kingdom Come?
I can't remember.
I think it's either in Kingdom Come or in Dark Knight Returns.
Not in Dark Knight Returns.
Doesn't he talk? No, okay.
He doesn't talk about Eel in that.
With something else.
But yeah, like, really stop and think about how fucking creepy Plastic Man is and how terrifying he is.
He can just cover you and smother you.
If you're Big Barda, he may be your clothes, for example.
He may be your clothes. But, so there was this argument about...
Speaking of which, it's actually a really good comparison between Barda and Diana.
Yes.
Barda is warlike.
Martial. She is martial.
She's very martial. She's very logos-oriented. She's very violent.
Because of where she comes from.
Apocalypse.
the ultimate patriarchal state.
Her balance is Scott, who's actually more feminine.
Right.
He's an escape artist.
Right.
He goes with the flow.
Right.
Like, he seizes the opportune moment.
Yeah, there's actually gender reversal in the Scott-free Big Barda relationship.
God bless you, Jack Kirby.
Yeah, and he established that in that run.
Mm-hmm. And Barda's hot as hell. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, it almost feels like the Wonder Woman they want to have in this is
Barda.
actually Big Barda. Like,
Wieners!
Like, I don't think you all get what's going on here.
If you would like to see Big Barda in all of her glory, I suggest you read Giffen and DeMatteis' JLI, because there's a great shot of her standing in the kitchen yelling at Scott over the phone in bunny slippers and boxer shorts, and then she beats the phone into a pulp.
It's awesome.
It's the best. But yeah, that's not Diana. That's something else.
Even that Perez, the Wolfman Perez stuff, it's like I said, violence is an aspect of the character, right? And there's a lot... Because there's a lot of preachiness involved in Diana. She talks to you.
She preaches a lot.
She lectures to you. That is all a part of it as well as being, she's supposed to personify a lot of things about femininity that are sometimes problematic and conflicting.
And she comes as an emissary, and she comes as an ambassador first.
But she also does it as somebody who's young and inexperienced.
Yes.
So the fact that she makes mistakes is
all the time
is important. It's part of it.
And so it's not, and I get the same argument from people. Well, you just saw her for 2 scenes. My problem is that you're leading with that. So look, when you do a movie like this, you're basically operating under the assumption that these are iconic characters.
Yes.
People know who they are. They've been waiting to see them for a long time.
Like you and me.
Yeah, you see the Batman suit, you should get a little chill, like, oh,
Right.
You see Wonder Woman for the first time, what you're putting up on the screen for 3 seconds is, to someone somewhere, emblematic of what they think the essence of that character is.
Yep.
You should look and be like, God damn it, that's Diana. That's not Diana in that trailer, and that troubles me that whoever put that together thinks that that's like the essence of that archeitype.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, but also at the same time, I think it's...
That you're going to lead with that is troubling to me.
That the people who are putting something like that together simply want to show how action-packed and exciting this is going to be.
I understand
They don't really care
that.
about the nuances of archetypes,
but,
right?
But people who... Idiots, basically. People who are going to argue with me about this movie are going to be like, well, you can't judge a book by its cover, basically, but I'm just saying this does not bode well.
That's what I'm saying, is that what we've seen so far, like Ben overperforming and not being internalized enough.
And Henry not having anything to do except look kind of woeful.
There might be something there, and I was thinking about this, is the fact that Superman in this one, and this makes sense to me, is being presented as being distant.
Yeah.
Right? That could actually make narrative sense because of what the tones they're going for. So
there's also... Yeah, go ahead.
Especially since Man of Steel was so very much...
personal
for him. So it makes sense. Like, I'm not actually having a problem with that, and I'm pretty sure that Henry's going to be able to carry his performance because he is Superman.
But it's going to be Superman versus Mecha Ben Affleck.
Yep.
And I am so angry about that.
Yeah, and let's talk about Luthor real quick. Another case of overperforming so far from what we've seen. His kind of twee, slightly effeminate, slightly perverted tone that he's taking with
Lex
this.
is not perverted. Lex is very comfortable in his masculinity and who he is.
Jesse Eisenberg, isn't that his name?
I don't give a fuck what his name is.
Well,
he's one of the hipster kings, okay?
Yeah, he's part of whatever the Brat Pack version now of like these hipster actors.
It started with Michael Cera, and he's the latest incarnation of this. He's smarmy, and I don't like him.
It's such an obvious take on this character so far from what we've seen that the couple lines he has, I laugh. Yeah. And I shouldn't be laughing at Lex.
You shouldn't be laughing at Lex in any more than you laughed at Gene Hackman as Lex.
Yeah, but Gene Hackman had some absolutely stellar, hilarious scenes. So
a little bitty.
You want to see a long arm load?
It's a little bitty place.
My favorite is L for ladder. That's my favorite line.
Ladder.
L for ladder.
But if Lex is going to be ridiculous, he should be ridiculous like that.
Right. Hey,
he should be the crazy Lex in the animated movie who stands up in the end and goes, "God bless me,"
after kissing Amanda Waller,
which is just upsetting on so many levels. And Waller looks like she's going to fucking murder him when he does that.
So,
and as she should.
One of the things I've noticed in both trailers, because we're going to talk about the second one in a minute, is I think they're trying to pull a fast one in both cases, because there have been subtle clues along the line that what you're seeing on screen is not necessarily what's happening in the plot. Mm-hmm. For instance, I think when you see the body of Zod, when you see that scene of Luthor putting his hand on a kneeling Superman who looks all evil, I think we're talking a clone here. I don't even know if the Superman and Batman that are fighting is actually the real Superman. Yeah. I think that's most likely what's going on, which in some ways...
And I think that's bullshit.
Because you might as well commit, right?
Regardless of what's going on, there is so much shit that is happening in this movie that it is all going to be shallow. You are trying to do too much in this movie.
And
too much.
Even if they're just cameos, like they keep saying, we got to say
it's
that, okay,
too much.
Okay, Diana's going to be in it. Cyborg's going to be in it. Aquaman's going to be in it.
What?
Yeah, they all have cameos.
Like Jason Momoa Aquaman?
Yeah, the one you like. And they just recently announced that Barbara Gordon's going to be in it. So, yeah, Jenna Malone.
What?
I don't have anything against Jenna Malone.
I'm just...
You know, the girlfriend from Donnie Darko?
God, fuck that movie. It's so deep. It's some fucking creepy child molester in a bunny suit.
Oh, it's deep until the end, when all this kind of weird esoteric archetypal thing that's going on suddenly turns to be completely literal. That's when that movie goes completely off the rails.
That movie is pretentious.
Yes, and because of that reason.
I don't like it.
We're not talking about Donnie Darko now, though.
I'm talking about Donnie Darko.
So, now we move on to...
No, I'm not done.
Okay, go for it. Sorry.
No, you put all this. You basically like try to kind of put one in the butt basically and make this like quick Justice League movie, and I'm like no. So we have The Dark Knight Returns. We have Justice League. We have what else? A little bit of Kingdom Come kind of floating around in there.
Yeah, possibly.
Thematically,
I mean, it's definitely more Dark Knight Returns
combined with may he rest in peace, John Williams-esque score. Of like, do you hear the music? Do you hear it?
Yeah.
With Steve Jobs as Lex Luthor.
As the villain, yeah.
And I'm sure, Zack Snyder's going to be like, you know what? We don't even need to use a tripod for any scene. We're just going to shake the camera a lot. We're going to let Superman carry the camera through the movie.
Yeah.
Bite me.
This
movie looks fucking ridiculous.
Can I just have a quick tangent in saying... Okay, regardless of what you think of him as
I almost had a fucking seizure watching Man of Steel.
Regardless of what you think of this other gentleman as a filmmaker, I got to point something out.
Garbage.
Hold on. David Fincher never uses handheld.
Yeah.
And you know why? He said he likes the idea of an omniscient point of view.
Yeah.
That this camera is an entity that is going to capture the story perfectly as presented. It's not the fact that it's somebody running along the story with a fucking camera.
It actually throws me out of the fucking narrative if you're jiggling the camera all over the place.
Yeah, if the camera is just sitting there capturing a scene, I can forget it's a camera.
I don't read a book and shake it in front of my face, okay?
Or a comic. Oh, look, it's moving.
Like, we get it. Handheld used to be a thing that you only did when you couldn't get a steady camera. You couldn't fit it somewhere. Well, or you just had to do it.
It was a staple of independent and small-budget filmmaking, specifically for that reason. And
even then, you usually have a cameraman running with it braced on his shoulder. But with Cloverfield and all of that bullshit, it got really popular.
With found footage genre. You know what scene, and I think it's just a handheld. A scene from a movie that uses handheld brilliantly is in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a handheld. It's not a steady cam. But the scene where they're getting fired upon, not from the sniper, but it's earlier in the movie, where they have to approach the building as a platoon, and the camera is basically one of the guys in...
Exactly.
And it keeps going by a guy, and then it puts you so in the moment.
And that's how it should be used.
And it's so tense.
But the camera should not substitute as a character all the time. It is the eye. It's the focus on the world. And I'm really sick of the handheld all the time. I get, maybe it's me just getting old, but when I'm sitting in the theater, it actually almost makes me throw up sometimes if it's wiggling all over the place.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you said that it takes you out of the movie because, when it becomes glaringly obvious it's a handheld, you're like, who the fuck is holding this camera in front of a superhero fight?
Put it on a fucking tripod.
Just put it on a tripod.
Please, I beg you. Oh, and I'd like to go back and say, Grant Morrison, after saying this about Wonder Woman...
Oh, yeah.
About saying, Wonder Woman really isn't all that violent, guys. You should, maybe...
Yeah.
Maybe, don't like, judge a book by its cover and do a little research. And then everyone's like, Grant Morrison doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, and he's a hack.
Yeah,
he's really a hack. Let's go through his publishing history, shall we? Hack, I know hack authors who have published hundreds of things.
Yeah,
successfully.
I know hack authors within comic books that are much beloved, and I'm not...
He doesn't know how to write characters or a plot.
I'm not even going to... I don't want to use the term hack in that way because it's insulting, but I'm sorry. Chris Claremont's a bit of a hack.
Yep.
John Byrne's a bit of a hack.
Sorry.
It's true. It's fucking true.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you're crap all the time, but they've definitely done hacky work.
They are working authors.
Right. And it's serial narrative. It's hard to be completely awesome all the time,
As I was slinging shit on CBR with the rest of them, as I pointed out, too many, 40-something straight white males who were on there being like, Grant Morrison is real. I really don't appreciate his work, and he's not good at what he does. I made the point of saying just because you don't appreciate the content doesn't mean you can say that he's bad at craft. He is an excellent craftsman.
Or the fact that you don't understand it.
Yeah, he makes you feel dumb.
Right.
And I'm really sorry that he makes you feel dumb. But that doesn't mean that his comics are bad. You can just straight up not like his stuff.
Right.
That's fine.
You can
Whatever.
not like his style.
Yeah.
But the fact is, when I see people comment
he appeals to a very particular kind of person who thinks a particular kind of way.
You and me.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, I struggle with some of his stuff sometimes. It's a little... Some of his earlier stuff is a little intricate. We'll put it that way.
Yes, he has a problem sometimes with structure overriding content.
And sometimes he's a little distant from people.
Yes.
But it usually serves the larger narrative. It's just I don't always want that distance with certain characters.
What I say about him...
That's all.
And the reason he is a good craftsman is that you will find few writers, in particular, working in any format...
The scope of what he can do.
That are able to have simultaneous complexity and heart in a story is second to none.
Also, these are the people who were saying that his Batman is distant, cold, and cynical. Cold and cynical. I'm sorry. Can we review for a second? His run on Batman, which included Damian...
One of the best Batman runs of all time.
Yeah. But his Batman is cold and cynical. I'm like, no, his Batman is aloof and judgmental. There's a difference.
I wouldn't even argue that that's even wrong. But at the same time...
he's not cynical.
Well, you know what it is?
But these are Nolan fans saying that his Batman is cold and cynical.
Completely ironic considering how Christian Bale
plays
the character.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And I think some of it is when Dick Grayson is Batman, he is actually much more cynical.
Well, yeah, because
he's fucking Dick Grayson.
Because Dick's hopes are dashed,
right? And he's struggling with a lot of trying to fulfill the shoes of this father figure.
And I think he secretly always thought he'd be good at it,
right? And he is, but
it's different.
Part of his arc in that is that he is not Bruce.
No one ever really knows, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up, Bruce Wayne's ass. No one ever really knows the enormity of what Bruce does until they have to step into that cowl, and they're like, "Holy shit! How does he do this?"
And that's a huge part of when Dick Grayson is Batman. So,
which is a perfect example of people, which we've discussed this before, people who think that anyone can be Batman and that he's the most realistic superhero. No,
shit.
No. Yes, because everyone has 90 lifetimes to become a martial arts technical master with boatloads of cash. Yeah. And
be PhD qualified in just about 20 different
sleep like
disciplines.
15 minutes a night and just be a Royal Shakespeare Company level actor as well.
Oh yeah, because he still has to do things like pose as Matches Malone and infiltrate the underworld.
And he's a CrossFit, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, drunken boxing master.
Shaolin monk ninja.
Yeah. Who can meditate and heal himself.
Yeah, of course. But, going back...
But, I can be Batman.
For instance, there's, I really like the fantasy author China Miéville. Now China Miéville has a problem with emotion in his stories.
No shit.
He's very content and concept oriented, and
more than content. It's the concept.
Yeah, he's very conceptual to a fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like reading his stuff because it's very mental and it presents you with lots of interesting concepts and ideas. It doesn't usually have a good emotional center,
and it drives me batshit.
Grant, on the other hand, has a lot of the same things as far as conceptual writing.
But then he will kick you in the nuts.
With emotion.
Yeah.
Like, he will make you cry.
Yeah, I'm like, anyone who's like, Grant Morrison just doesn't understand comics. Read fucking Coyote Gospel.
Nobody understands comics more than he does.
From Animal Man.
Right.
Read that and tell me that you're not touched. If you're not touched, congratulations, you're dead inside.
Read the whole Animal Man run.
You are dead inside.
You know,
but if you have to pick one story... Read the last issue of his run on Doom Patrol.
Oh, it's so good.
Danny the World, bitches.
Danny the World.
Danny the World.
A moment where you open to a splash page and you are brought to tears.
Because he asks the continual question of, why can't things just be better?
Yeah.
After all the shit and complexity, why can't they just be better? Because this medium means you can just turn the page and change everything.
And everything can be all right.
Because you can. Which is what makes him different from people like Alan Moore and Frank Miller, which they're like, no, actions have consequences. I'm like, these are not real people.
It's fiction.
It's fucking fiction.
It's a fictional world. You could do whatever you want.
Exactly.
So the idea...
As long as it tracks, and it always tracks
within
with
the
him.
Interior logic of the story itself, not necessarily in its relation to fucking reality. And that's what that is what you are battling with in these conversations, you know, is that most of these people think that what makes superhero stories, and particularly good, is how they accurately reflect the real world. And there is no opinion or there's no point of view more moronic than that one.
Superheroes. People who see through walls and can fly.
But you better explain that scientifically. You better have them act morally exactly as a person
like a
would
piece
hear.
of shit human being. Superman didn't file his tax return this year. Who pumps the tires on the Batmobile? Alfred, duh.
Who cares?
For all we know, Bruce does
Who cares?
it. Actually, they're probably self-inflating because Bat Tech. Wayne Tech, I should say.
If Superman was really around, this is how people would react to him. So Dawn of Justice is just like the real world. Why do I want something like the real world? I live in the real world. I don't like it.
This is art, you knuckle-dragging dipshits. Get over yourselves.
Yeah. Reality is for reality.
And then we have to drill down and talk about this shit like it's a goddamn fucking dissertation when you know, the person who's frothing at the mouth over, you know, a Wonder Woman costume and 3 seconds of footage can turn around and say, it's just a fucking comic book.
Yeah, I mean...
everyone needs to fucking relax.
The people that criticize, say, our opinion as being like, well, you're judging it too harshly immediately. They're judging it too, right?
Yeah.
You're judging it on the same 3 seconds I am, but what is our bias and what is our agenda?
My bias is these are imaginary characters who are archetypes. Your bias is, well, they should be like police.
Yeah, well, that's the other
ninjas.
That's the other Grant Morrison opinion that I'm completely in line with, and this is beyond Dawn of Justice, where it seems like all these characters, these superhero characters in adaptation, have to somehow fulfill the military-industrial complex status quo.
Cartoon physics.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line, right? But no.
He says they are ink on a page.
They're ink on a
You
page,
can make them whatever you want.
But all these characters, like, I mean, the Avengers, they're basically the police.
Yeah.
They're basically the military. They're defending New York against terrorists. It just happens that terrorists are aliens. Okay?
Well, aren't all terrorists aliens, really, when you get down
and
to
I
it?
love,
That's tongue-in-cheek, by the way.
I actually love that movie. And
it's great because, but the thing is, so there's this kind of dumb, hyper-realistic thing that's happening with all of this stuff because that's what Marvel does. But Joss Whedon gets something kind of essential about all those characters, and it's about the human relationships.
Yes.
So there is heart in that movie.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that underneath, what Grant was pointing out is something I agree with, which is underneath all this, there's kind of this insidious thing that superheroes are not iconic. Superheroes are not pushing you to be better. Mm-hmm. They're there to enforce.
And they have to be just like us. And I'm like, I'm sorry you don't actually have a fucking imagination, and you can't imagine yourself as Superman or Wonder Woman.
Like I
can.
Like I said, I like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
But at the end of that movie, he still has to qualify himself as not being a threat to the military.
Yep.
And that's, I'm a little uncomfortable, and all this seems subconscious on the part of people who are creating it. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're the police. They're world police. And by proxy, so are the Avengers.
There are other issues with that show.
I mean, who's basically the first obstacle in Tony Stark's way in the first Iron Man movie? A cave of terrorists.
Brown people, by the way.
Yeah, every one of these movies is kind of like, except maybe the Hulk movie where he is against the military, but that's always been the Hulk thing.
Actually, the military goes bonkers.
Yes, as they should.
Yeah. And his performance in the Ed Norton Hulk, what's his name, that actor?
Tim Roth?
Yeah, is brilliant.
As Abomination?
Yeah.
Is that who we're talking about?
He's fucking great.
Yeah, he was one of the best things in that movie.
Oh, yeah, I love him.
But yeah, there's...
But yeah, the fact that they're here basically to be the world police, it's like, no, they're here to inspire us to be better people.
Yeah, and not...
And they're not actually here. They're not real.
And not world police in the sense of,
the UN.
Defending the globe.
No, it's enforcing.
It's kind of enforcing what is very obviously... And it's subtle.
The
American
Western status quo.
Right. And yeah, it's something that I'm growing increasingly uncomfortable with in these things. And Grant obviously doesn't like it, and he mentioned it. And people dogpiled on him and called him a hack because he had an opinion that was, contrary to theirs.
That touched a fucking nerve.
Yeah.
And again, I'm saying you don't have to like his work,
no.
But you do have to admit that he's good at what he does.
Absolutely.
I will say, as much as I despise him, Alan Moore is good at what he does. He has a particular kind of storytelling, and he does it well.
Yes.
I just happen to fucking hate it. And it often kind of collapses under its own weight.
I think he's much more open to craft critique than Grant is.
Well, he sets himself up as this literary giant, and so I'm going to tear him down.
Yeah, and there's problems.
Also, I don't feel that his craft is suited to the medium that he practices it in.
No, he's a prose writer.
But that's a different story. If you like verbose shit, then you're gonna love him.
But at the same time, you got despite the problems I have with some of his most beloved works, like Watchmen, for instance, you cannot argue the fact that one of the things he does as script writer in that is he's able to direct Dave Gibbons to give the perfect visual representation for what he's writing. And that is one of the reasons why Watchmen as a piece of craft is amazing.
If I had to draw it, I would punch myself in the face repeatedly because he was probably hell to work with.
Absolutely.
The scripts are insane.
Yes.
From that.
Yeah, but that's, that's...
Whereas Grant's are like, stuff!
Do you know how Grant writes? It's really interesting. He actually draws the comics first, and then he writes a script.
And he's not a bad artist.
No. Well, he wanted to be an artist initially.
There's that really famous bit from his sketchbook of his Superman, and he's smiling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's smiling. Imagine that, a smiling Superman.
But yeah, just there's this. It makes me nuts. It actually makes me fucking nuts to have these conversations with people where they're like, well, that's not realistic. I'm like, we are talking about people who dress up in fucking tights and fight crime for a living.
Scott Summers shoots lasers out his eyes that are not lasers. Because they're force beams.
What?
Yeah, they're not actually, they don't cut. They don't have heat. They're force beams. You don't read the X-Men, so you don't know this.
Force beams?
Force beams.
Force beams.
Force beams. They're lasers that aren't lasers. And you're going to tell me
I didn't think Scott Summers could get stupider, but he just did.
It's the X-Men. It could always get stupider.
Yes, it's super realistic that you have a character who shoots bony protuberances out of his knuckles and doesn't die.
Colossus once was basically exploded into microcosmic dust and poured in a river. He's fine now.
Mm-hmm. Moving beyond the X-Men, the Human Torch regularly bursts into flames.
Yep.
The Hulk.
What's burning?
What's burning? There's combustion and then there's fuel for the fire.
Right.
What's burning? Apparently it's all the ground beef that he's made out of. Because, so original Human Torch looks like he's the Michelin Man coated in ground beef. You should go look at the original Kirby drawings. Because he just looks fucking bizarre.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Terrence McKenna, this is a tangent, but it makes sense, once referred to James Joyce, the writer, as a dipstick for intelligence. because lots of people just don't want to spend the time to actually read James Joyce, and maybe sometimes you shouldn't. But my point is that
I've read certain aspects of his work.
I think I'm actually a fan. But Grant Morrison is the comic book equivalent of James Joyce.
He's a dipstick for intelligence. You don't have to like him, but you are kind of dumb if you don't get what he's doing.
If you don't try and then just say it's stupid or it doesn't make any sense, yes, you're the idiot.
I talk massive amounts of shit, but if you put something in front of me, except for the X-Men, I will read it and give it a shot.
The thing about a lot of Grant is, yes, you might need to think about it. You might need to read it more than once. Well, it's part, one of the problems with
also, one thing that you read by him may not be as good as other things.
Oh,
because,
that's true.
It's hilarious because, it's not so bad. Dan Didio's really not so bad, but Grant Morrison messes up a panel and it's like the fucking Spanish Inquisition.
Because people don't like how quote-unquote overrated he is. That's why he becomes a target.
He's not overrated. You're just stupid.
Right.
Sorry. But fucking, and again, that doesn't mean that you have to like it. If you can sit down and have an intelligent conversation and be like, I get what he's doing, it just doesn't do it for me. Fine. People who are just like, well, he's overrated. He's overrated, and I don't understand what he's doing.
Parentheses, I don't understand it.
Yeah, or people say, what did that guy say on that forum? I don't like comics that make me think.
It's essentially what Matt Fraction is. Matt Fraction paraphrased critics of Grant Morrison by saying, like, when Final Crisis came out, he was seeing people on forums literally saying, how dare you make me think.
And people still bring up Final Crisis.
Even
the people who were like, well, I like Grant Morrison, but I don't know about Final Crisis.
Well, there were some editorial issues around that, but we'll get to that at some point because we'll do Final Crisis. But this is a problem with superhero comics. They're not, on average, particularly intelligent pieces.
No, they're made for 8-year-olds.
Well, that's the DNA of it, right? Like, that's what it comes from.
But it's important to remember where they came from.
And most people, who read superhero comics are basically looking for a 10-minute action scene that they can, throw away when it's done. Mm-hmm. It's not particularly challenging media. The writers out there who make it challenging are often considered kind of controversial and problematic.
But Alan Moore made it challenging and everyone jizzes buckets over him.
Oh, people are actually kind of reacting against Alan
Same
lately
with Frank Miller.
Because of the but people are pulling back from those two because of politically correct reasons.
Frank
not
stopped
necessarily
riding on the racist train and is now driving the racist train.
But my whole point is that on average, your average superhero fan is not one who is looking to be challenged by the work he's reading.
No.
Not at all.
They want to sit around and be like, well, in issue 55 in 1962, the Hulk actually wore pants that were gray, not purple.
Or they just want to read something and be like, oh, that was fun. That was cool. And that's it.
But then they sit and dissect these things with each other.
Some do.
But these are the ones who do are also the people who are like, Grant Morrison's overrated.
Yeah.
You're really going to read, 80s Iron Man?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
With the same critical lens that you apply to Grant Morrison, and you somehow think that that's better?
Well, that stuff is very, like I said, it's very pulpy. It's very action movie. It's all it is. So you have Grant come in who wants to invert it, wants to turn it around, wants to examine it.
And people freak the fuck out.
And then be like, hey, look, what do you think about this?
Let's try something new.
And people don't like that. It's the same reason people are universally embracing, let's say, Dawn of Justice, because they don't want the things you and I want. They don't want the icon, the archetype. They don't want nuance and subtlety. They don't want this fantasy world where anything imaginative could happen.
They want Superman and Batman punching each other in the face in New York.
Yes, because obviously the most interesting thing about superheroes is when they punch each other.
Yeah.
Bottom line. That's the problem.
So much fun. I'm riveted.
Never mind things like the moral dilemma of the Hiketea, right?
Or the fact that Clark constantly has to negotiate his immigrant status with the government that tries to claim him as a symbol of America.
Or what Birthright does in with gender and stuff. And I mean that's what we're struggling with is that.
It doesn't all have to be highfalutin stuff.
No. But Grant is kind of highfalutin a lot of the time.
He is an intellectual.
Yes, he is absolutely an intellectual, and that pisses people off because people don't like being talked down to.
But he doesn't talk down to you. He invites you in.
He's trying to prop you up.
Yeah.
He's trying to pull you up.
Alan Moore talks down to you.
Absolutely.
He says, "Sit down, children. I'm going to tell you a bedtime story about fascism and rape."
Art isn't just entertainment, and superheroes are mostly entertainment. So when you have that cross section of people,
there's a lot of tension.
There's a lot of tension of superheroes can do amazing things in stories and can do anything. Like read All-Star Superman, and a lot of people just don't.
There was a guy who's like, All-Star Superman is the worst comic I've ever read.
That's
what.
Anybody who said
All-Star Batman and Robin is the worst comic you've ever read.
Because All-Star Superman is probably the best Superman comic ever published.
I'm pretty sure Siegel and Schuster would think so too.
Yes, it's
They'd
an amazing
probably
work.
want to know why Jimmy Olsen was in a skirt.
You never know.
But they might go, huh? Doesn't surprise me.
Have we beaten Dawn of Justice to death yet?
My whole point is, and people are going to get all mad because I told you were dumb if you like the movie. You're not. Okay, so you're dumb if you don't like. You're dumb if you can't recognize Grant Morrison as a good craftsman. You're not dumb if you don't like him.
Right.
But be honest about why you don't like him. Not everything is for everybody, and you can like what you like. But I'd much rather have a conversation with someone who's like, I just want to see Batman and Superman beating the crap out of each other than people who are trying to go toe-to-toe with me on the fucking internet to tell me that this is going to be a good movie. It's not. It's a video game.
Yeah, it actually looks a lot like
and people,
what was it, Infinite Crisis? What was it? Injustice.
People want to debate shit and bring up comic book examples, and I'm like, you are missing, if you just trot out Dark Knight Returns for the billionth time, okay, Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, this is so much like Dark Knight Returns. Go watch the 2-part animated movie that they did recently of Dark Knight Returns.
That's all you need. We don't need it
Done.
again.
D-U-N, done.
We don't need it again. I watched it again recently. I'm like,
this
is great.
Flawless.
This is exactly what you need. I don't need to see this again.
No. And also, it's like, yes, so you read Dark Knight Returns in your college literature class. Congratulations, you read a graphic novel. Go read Detective Comics.
Yes.
And talk to me.
Well, right now, aren't you reading the
I'm reading the Greg Rucka run on Detective Comics, which is the end of No Man's Land and post No Man's Land.
And it runs right into the Brubaker run.
Thank God. No Man's Land was so bad. Bad. Before it went on for so long.
Yeah, but it was basically the Batman equivalent of the Clone Saga. Although I think it's actually better written than the Clone Saga. Like, I don't hate No Man's Land, but it just went on way too long.
But what's interesting is that it's a smorgasbord of all these little Batman stories.
Yes.
And none of them are particularly connected, but you're kind of learning more about Gotham, and you're learning specifically about Montoya, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, she shines in that.
Uh-huh. And you're just learning more about Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce Wayne murderer happens in that.
Well, I was going to say that this whole era of detective that you're reading is really good character examination of Bruce Wayne, because you got No Man's Land, you've got Officer Down, you've got Bruce Wayne murderer, then Bruce Wayne fugitive. Then you're going to have War Games. So there's a whole bunch of stuff of Bruce at this time that really picks him apart.
And right now, I just well, I read the first and last issue of Bruce Wayne Murderer because the rest of it takes place outside of Detective Comics. I read it a long time ago, and then I moved from the first one to the last one, wherein he and Sasha are in jail, and I got so confused. I was like, wait, oh, okay.
Yeah, I should have just told you to skip.
No, it's okay. It's been a long time since I've read it. But, and then Bruce flees. So it's just Batman for a while. And that's interesting because that means something.
Yes.
It means that Bruce no longer has to be Bruce. Because really, I mean, if you really know Batman, you understand that Bruce is the facade. And that Batman is the real character.
Well, this is what I say about that. I tend to agree with you, but I don't think the matter is settled. And I don't think the matter should ever be settled.
No. There's tension there.
Because that is something writers can always re-examine.
But he's usually, in the end, more Bat than Bruce.
Yes.
And you see it. You see it sometimes. I love it when he's in public and he's being the Bruce Wayne, doing the thing, like, where's the bathroom? Like, I can't put my jacket on by myself, boobies everywhere. And then something happens. And he just has a moment. Or he just does something. Like when he spills his glass of wine on the mayor during.
Yes, I remember that.
During the Whisper Adair storyline. Yes. And he sees her talking to him, and just the way that I can't remember who's drawing it at that point and coloring it too, because they're all in 2 and 3 color, which is brilliant. And you see an eye light on him, and he's Batman. Yes. In that moment.
Oh yeah. I remember.
And then he turns and he goes back to being Bruce. It's fucking great.
Well, all of that into Brubaker obviously as well is so very noirish. Like
it's
these
so
2
good.
runs to get back to back. I mean, really, Rucka and Brubaker. I mean, oh my god!
And the backup stories are great because there's a Slam Bradley backup story for a while with Catwoman, and then there's the backup.
Slam Bradley is one of the original DC characters who was originally featured. He was in Detective Comics. I don't know if he appeared in like New Fun Comics before that, but he goes way back to before Batman. That's why he's interesting.
And Ed Brubaker writes Philip Marlowe, Raymond Chandler style noir story where he's tracking down Selina.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
It's wonderful.
And that takes place after the horrendous,
my God.
Volume 3 Catwoman that ends like a year earlier. The one with her sister and there's craziness.
She goes crazy and can't. She's basically, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen.
I think it's Volume 3.
It is a fucking train wreck.
Catwoman Volume 3 is unreadable.
It is a train wreck. I was angry at you for making me read that.
I gave you some of those just because I needed you to know that Catwoman was not around, because what happens now is you've got those stories in Detective Comics, and then you have When in Rome, right?
I love When in Rome.
Right.
Oh, it's so good. Anyone who likes Selina should go read that.
Oh, yeah, that's great stuff. And then when you get Catwoman Volume, I think it's 4, the one that's relaunched after When in Rome, that's really good stuff. That's really, really good stuff.
But yeah, there is a period in there where it is not good. And it has all the bad female character tropes. She's a victim, like all of this shit.
She's erratic, she's overly emotional, and the whole time
she's incompetent.
Her breasts are just like
all over the
place.
It's just boob city everywhere. And I'm all for boob city, but I prefer characters that are well written and who also reside in boob city.
yes, I have a little bit of both. Talk about Grant earlier. We were talking about how he is primarily like a conceptual writer who really knows how to add emotion.
And you know me, I don't usually like conceptual writers.
No.
I don't like the conceit. I don't like the structure. I don't like seeing the building blocks happening.
Rucka, on the other hand,
character-driven.
Is a character writer.
He writes better characters than
Grant
does.
I think Greg Rucka might be my favorite pure character writer.
You want to talk about making them more human?
Oh my! It's just so good.
He hits the core. It's like ringing a bell. Like he hits something about every single character all the time.
It's what they refer to as character voice, right? Like, I don't think Rucka gets anybody's voice wrong.
No.
He knows exactly what makes a character distinctive.
And it doesn't even matter what's going on. For example...
Yeah, plot is almost secondary sometimes, right?
Yeah, there's that whole plot with Sasha, Bruce Wayne's bodyguard,
right?
Who finds out that he's Batman, and he basically puts her through hell,
yes.
And then is like, you get to go out with me at night, you do exactly what I say. She never does exactly what he says.
Right.
There are two wonderful things that happen. There's one issue where it's actually just her and Huntress.
I remember that one,
and she's like, he's going to get sick of you. Oh, no, what she says, you will disappoint him.
Yes. She should know.
Yeah, she's like, you'll fuck up and you'll disappoint him. And she's like, I don't know what to tell you because that's what always happens.
Yep.
And it's great because you know it is going to happen because Bruce is so exacting.
Yes.
And there's another, and, people are going to be like, this is dumb. When Jim Gordon retires.
Yes.
And Sasha's in this issue. What happens is that Two-Face shows up and takes her hostage and comes in. And, he has a gun to her head and his henchmen show up and everything. He flips the coin. And what happens then is Harvey Dent gets up and gives a speech about what a wonderful man Jim Gordon was. And what an honor it was to work with him. And I'm actually getting a little teary because I thought this was such a great moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then he peacefully lets the GCPD lead him away.
Yes.
And that is the essence of that character there.
What Rucka does there that's genius is that whenever somebody writes Two-Face, it's always the other choice that they write. They always write, like, the fact that he is going to be murderous, right? It almost always.
But Harvey is still in there.
Rucka understands that it's not that he's dualistic. Like, he's still Harvey Dent. Like, and you never see enough of that personified in a story where it's not just that he would walk away from a violent situation. He would actually do something like that, which is this very noble moment.
And there wasn't a dry eye in the house when he was.
Oh, that's, yeah.
And they treated him like Harvey because he was in that moment. The only other time I've ever seen that is the DeMatteis Spectre, when Hal actually separates Harv from Harvey, and they basically find out that Harvey can't exist without him because because Big Bad Harv was always in there.
Yeah, that's I don't know if we've talked about the DeMatteis Spectre run, but you know that is a universally hated run, and I think it's brilliant.
Fucking love it. There's so much shit that we can talk about.
But that goes back to what I was saying before. Is that is a comic that is primarily character and idea. And not really action or violence, right? And people are like reading it and they're like, well, I don't really care about Hal Jordan's existential spiritual crisis. And
you
like,
should.
Fuck you, why not?
You should, because it makes him who he is.
Like, Hal Jordan is only cool when he's like blowing shit up with giant green space hammers. Come on,
it's his struggle along the road to enlightenment and
acceptance of who he is and responsibility for his actions. At the same time, being presented with basically a role in which there are no limitations. Like he can go anywhere, do anything, and he has to be this hand of judgment of God.
And it struggles with the notion of divinity, too.
Right. And what makes you human, what makes you divine.
And this is by the same person who wrote the Bwahaha verse, by the way.
People are like, I don't like it. Like, are you kidding me?
Look, peasants, it's a good fucking run, okay?
It's a great read.
It's whimsical and funny and sad
and heartfelt at times.
Yeah, and very and violent sometimes and creepy, and the art is really cool and just it's really fucking good. But we totally got off on a tangent, by the way.
That's what we do here.
So Greg Rucka is amazing. I say, in purely character based, he is a better writer than
just about all, and better than Grant in my opinion.
Grant captures the whole of someone. Rucka reaches out and puts his finger on someone's soul.
He finds that core thing of what makes a character
and he makes
character.
it sing.
And he makes it sing. That's the best way of putting it.
He really does. So none of that will be happening in this travesty of a fucking movie.
Well, you real quick. You also said you really like his take on Poison Ivy.
Oh, I cannot say enough good shit about how he writes her. Because I feel, much how, Batman is Eel is terrifying, he could kill us all. Of all of Batman's rogues, she should be the scariest and the most powerful.
I agree.
Because Joker is chaos incarnate, but she is the earth.
And she has
you don't
all of that.
Fuck with Mother Nature.
She has all that at her, whim at times.
And during No Man's Land, what happens is she takes over the park.
As she would.
Mm-hmm. And she has a bunch of kids living with her in the park. And it's a bountiful place, but she basically says, if you come in here, we will kill you.
Yeah, I remember that.
And one thing she does is, I can't remember what the context was, but there's this fabulous moment, and it's when she's taking over the park, and Clayface is there. And she turns him into mulch.
Oh, that's right.
She kisses him, and he smiles, and she turns him into a mound of earth.
Yeah,
and no one has ever been able to defeat him.
Right,
she did.
Clayface is completely when Clayface is done well, he is actually one of the more unstoppable villains.
He's terrifying.
Because he is also elemental, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that basically she could take him and just undo him
completely
with something with hardly any effort.
And as he changes, you see him and he just smiles.
Yeah, he's in ecstasy, which is interesting because what are you going to read into that? Is he accepting of what's happening now? Is he drugged? Is he letting go?
This grass is drugged.
This grass is drugged. That's for you MST fans.
Are drugged.
Well, the fact that I've read so many comics.
Number 9.
One of the problems really is that it all gets kind of jumbled in my head, and I can't remember sometimes when certain things take place.
But
But within that era of Detective Comics, and I don't know whether it's Rucka or Brubaker, but it's a backup story. There's an ongoing Poison Ivy story in which she basically undoes the Riddler. Like, basically reduces him to nothing with her mind.
Because
like, I'm not talking telepathy, but she just, like, basically owns him and makes him confront what a colossal failure he is.
Oh, you think you're so fucking smart.
Right. Yeah, and she just undoes him psychologically, and it's amazing.
I would love to read that.
I want to say it's in that run, but God, no. It could have been in the New 52 for all I know at this point, because it's all in my head.
I read that, which is the beginning of her takeover of the park, which is basically the only untouched place in Gotham the whole time. You know, all the gangs have their areas and everything, and no one goes in there.
Right.
She says, she's like, this is ours. Get the fuck out. And Bruce is like, oh, like she's just like, get out. And he does. And then at the end, it's the last part of Gotham that they take back.
Right.
And there are kids in there that she cared for. There are these weird, almost doppelganger-esque, like, wood creatures that protect.
Yeah, I remember.
That protect it, and Bruce basically has to go in there before they burn it to the ground and get the kids out. And he's trying to convince her to send the kids out, and they don't want to leave, and she doesn't want to leave. And she has a face-off with Bruce again, and Bruce is like, he's just like, you can't do this. And she just goes, some things are worth dying for.
Yeah, how awesome is that? Well, because, Pamela Isley, right, is an idealist. Like, her human motivation is that she is uncompromising in doing the right thing. It's one of the reasons why, as all good Batman villains are, she is a reflection of what Bruce is. Because she is completely unwilling to compromise. And what Rucka is doing there is he's presenting these two uncompromising forces who are both motivated to do good.
And so what you're talking about here is you're taking back the city and making it whole again.
Yes.
But you're taking the only generative place that happened out of no man's land and raising it to the ground to make Gotham what it was.
Yep.
And she made something new,
right,
and more primal.
And
remember when when Swamp Thing took over Gotham
in Alan Moore's run?
Yes, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the better things that happened in Alan Moore's run.
Same kinds of questions.
Yep. And
in the J.H. Williams Batwoman with Medusa, she talks about the dark heart of Gotham,
right,
and something that's not ever really explored, which I love. In that particular comic, in that particular run, is like the weird feminine darkness that's there. That's
pervasive in Gotham, yeah.
Gotham's kind of like a lover.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to be good to her, otherwise she'll kill you.
Well, remember what I think Snyder and Higgins have both said about working with Gotham characters, is that Gotham presents whatever hero it is, presents
a challenge,
a reflection based on who you are.
And I feel like Ivy is a really interesting reflection of Bruce in that he never really knows what to do with her.
No, he doesn't.
He's just like, ugh. And people usually kind of cut her kneecap her and like have her defeat herself. Yeah. But why would she?
Because it's how hard is it to write defeating her?
Why?
It's really hard.
Why would she?
Well, because in the end, it's a commentary on how monolithic Bruce is, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is the lesson, is that Bruce needs to learn that being one-sided in your pursuit of perfection and morality is going to undo you. Like, that's the commentary at play, so it makes sense.
But it's never really done well. It always just feels like it's kind of shittily and quickly wrapped up.
Yes.
With her.
Well, that's also serial narrative format, so you have to do that.
But I was really struck by both of those stories and how interesting she is in those. And yeah, he just gets something about her. She is she's not goofy. She's fucking dangerous.
Yes, as she should be.
Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever noticed how Joker kind of stays the hell away from her?
Yeah. She could.
They don't mix, those two.
I mean, that's the thing.
Not at all.
Is like, thank God Ivy is motivated in her own way to do good, because if she was actually a super villain,
unstoppable,
she'd probably be unstoppable.
Unstoppable. She's elemental, like Swamp Thing,
exactly.
Like Clayface,
exactly,
like Mr. Freeze.
In a certain way, yes.
Victor's still more human than she is.
Yes.
And he's motivated by love for particular person.
But to make him elemental, he is motivated in the sense that he is frozen in a moment that is gone. It only exists as a piece of ice.
And I find these characters the most interesting. And so when Rucka did that with her, I kind of perked up. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and she doesn't even look at Bruce when she says that. She walks past him and says some things are worth dying for.
Yep.
And you look at his face and you tell he gets it.
Yeah, because that's him.
He's like, oh.
That's him.
But yeah, the page where she kisses Clayface and he turns into a mound covered with moss and flowers, the last panel on that page is Batman trying to struggle free of a mass of vines.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And she's standing there just completely unforgiving.
Yeah.
But not cold. She's just like, this is what is happening. This park is mine. Get out. And it's, what are you going to do? And they leave. They leave, and she does her thing. And let's see here. Every time I move. There's a scene, it's almost Truck Headstand-like, which I will explain at some point. There's a scene where Batman, and it's in just some random Batman story, Batman is standing perfectly still and kicking someone in the head.
Oh, that. Yeah, that's... We'll have to put that on like a Facebook or
he's
something.
standing straight up and like Russian dance kicking someone in the face.
Yeah. Well,
it is the stupidest thing I have ever seen.
It's kind of... I know the panel you're talking about. It's kind of an homage to that fight scene in the Tim Burton Batman. If you remember, there's... One of the problems with Tim Burton Batman is there's really no good action scenes, in my opinion. Yeah. They don't hold up.
Yeah.
But the scene where he's fighting a lot of Joker's henchmen in the street, and he's fighting the guy with the swords, and he blocks a whole bunch of the swords, and it's really cool. But then the guy comes at him, and he just kicks him in the face. Like, that is the same thing.
It's so dumb. So the scene where he's trying to convince her to leave the park, he's standing, and she's very Eve-like. She's covered in leaves. And he's standing there, and he's completely in shadow. And he says, if you don't leave, it dies tomorrow, and you with it. And she says, if I do leave, it dies all the same. A death by inches in years instead of a day. Who will protect the park if I don't? You? And he says, you're not talking about protection, you're talking about martyrdom. Then they have one panel where they're just staring at each other.
That is great.
She walks past him and says, some things are worth dying for, Batman. And you can just see his mouth.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing of like, you're killing the fucking planet.
And also Bruce is an industrialist, right? And a capitalist.
Yep.
That one panel of the silent stare makes that, in my opinion. I love that. It's all
she totally sees him and he just resists.
Yeah.
But she's like, no, I understand who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Unfucking real. Now I'm looking at Archie versus Predator. Okay, so second movie.
Suicide Squad.
You mean Hipster Squad?
Well, let's... Oh, before I had a tangent, you were talking about the Sasha storyline. I just want to point out to people who might not know, that storyline was co-opted and used in the Beware the Batman series. They just swapped Sasha for Katana. So if you're interested, that's actually where they got that storyline. So because Beware the Batman was actually pretty good. It picked up a lot of speed towards the end. So yeah, Suicide Squad trailer has also come out. I have less of a problem with this one than I had with Dawn of Justice, simply because having an overly serious, hyper-violent tone to
that is
Ostrander.
It is Ostrander's Suicide Squad.
Absolutely,
I mean it is.
But the problem really is that overall, one of the things that makes DC as compelling as it does, its universe as awesome as it can be, is you have a variety of storytelling tones ever present. Like, they're all different. When DC does its best work, they defy the idea of a house style. Unfortunately, New 52 was mostly a house style. But what they're doing now...
I wonder why.
But what they're doing now, post-Convergence, very much is lots of different kinds of stories with different tones. That's what you want.
And a lot of them, surprisingly, are very good.
The fact that Suicide Squad does completely seem to fit into the same universe and this sounds kind of weird, as Dawn of Justice for me is
weird.
a problem.
Yeah.
Because that's not DC. Okay?
Yeah.
They should not be this coherent, in my opinion.
I think Viola Davis's Waller is going to be fucking awesome.
I think this one will probably be pretty good. I'm sure, I have always been a Suicide Squad fan, and because it was one of the books that, as post-crisis, when I was like 10 years old, like I really liked. Like it was I was the perfect age for basically dumb action. And
it's a great book. You should all read it. If you like deconstruction of superheroes, you should read this book.
Suicide Squad very much is a good DC equivalent to kind of what Marvel does. Like the violent, hyper-realistic kind of storytelling. Like here was DC's version, the Suicide Squad. And it worked for them. It worked incredibly well. And
whoever would have thought Captain Boomerang could be such a fucking prick.
And could be one of the more compelling characters.
Yeah.
Right? Like and that's another thing about DC is that you always get these characters that rise to the top from the B and C lists that you're like, oh my god, suddenly this character is amazing.
Digger Harkness.
You don't always get that with Marvel. Once you get like a C-list fucking character, they tend to stay there. DC, suddenly you're like, oh my god, this story with like Count Vertigo is amazing. Who would have thought? You know, and
Digger Harkness is fucking rad. I love him. I really do.
I'm having a little bit of problem with. Now you said it seems to you like the actress who is playing Harley Quinn does have an accent, but
to me it seemed like she did a little bit.
But it's not
she doesn't talk enough.
And it's not as overt, probably.
But Harley should have the Mr. J accent. It's who she is.
It's very much who she is.
I'm not going to recognize myself if I don't have it.
And I don't know if you know this, but according to the sales, Harley Quinn is the number 2 selling character at DC.
Awesome.
Number 2 or 3, depending on the month. Harley Quinn has been one of the best-selling books DC has had through the New 52. If they don't get this character right, it's a problem.
She looks a little bit like a juggalo. Not in a good way.
But they did that in the Suicide Squad.
She has to be bombastic.
Yes, she has. And she has to kind of be, she has to be scary, funny, bombastic, but also
weirdly innocent in some ways.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Actually, no. Harley's not innocent. Harley is an optimist.
Yes.
Kind of a manic, violent optimist. She always looks on the bright side.
I don't want to have this movie have Harley Quinn
often at the expense of other people.
Yeah, I don't want her to have a moment of lucidity where she realizes she's a bad person.
No, and I also just don't want her to be a stupid hoe.
Right.
Because Harley's not a stupid hoe.
She has to have a lot of agency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you read Mad Love, the first issue of the Harley Quinn book.
Where she dumps Joker?
Where she dumps Joker. And it's got that great transition from the Bruce Timm art to...
yeah.
I can't remember who did
I can't remember who did
But yeah, signifying that change in her character, and it's such good stuff. So I'm a little worried about Harley in that movie, but
I'm more worried about something else.
You're worried about the Joker? Right?
No.
Oh, what are you worried about? Well, I know what you're worried about.
This has nothing to do with skin color and everything to do with the actor.
I agree.
I don't buy Will Smith as Deadshot for a fucking second.
No.
He is not that character. Period.
Floyd
is a sleazebag.
Yeah, he is.
Floyd is a bad person.
He's a very bad person. He's got reasons to be a bad person, but he's always unlikable. That's I think that's kind of important.
Will Smith has made, again, he's a name.
Exactly.
You know him, and he's made most of his career off playing likable characters.
Right. Usually, almost always.
Yeah.
Except for a couple exceptions.
Yeah. That's not to say that he's not a good actor. I just do not buy him in this role. And I think he looks really dumb bald.
Yeah, I don't buy it. It's
the
like
guy who played Floyd in Arrow
was phenomenal,
and they killed him off because Warner Brothers went, we can't have Suicide Squad characters on TV and in the movie at the same time because they apparently just don't like making money.
Meanwhile, they're going to have 2 Flashes.
Son of a bitch.
And they can't have 2 Deadshots?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because Deadshot matters so much. Deadshot matters so much that when you play Arkham City, You defeat him. You lock him in a train car.
He yells at you for the rest of the game.
On an elevated railway, and he stays in there for the rest of the game, and every time you fly over it, he swears at you.
Yeah, of course.
It's the best. If you ever feel bad about not getting a Riddler trophy, just go stand on top of that car for a while, and you'll hear Floyd cursing you out.
Floyd is a deeply disturbed individual in the comics.
He is an unsavory... Like, he's not just an asshole. He's an unsavory person.
He's not technically a sociopath because he has deep down motivation, guilt, and trauma for the way he is, but... He needs to be, like I said, unlikable.
Yes.
You should not like this guy.
And I don't see Floyd when I look at Will Smith. I really don't.
No, it's and maybe he'll pull it out. You know, there was a movie Will Smith made when he was a teenager about like disturbed teenagers, like runaways, and I can't remember the name of it. He was quite good in that movie, so we know Will Smith has the acting chops.
But I just know him as a household name at this point. I'd rather they pick someone. I'd rather they pick an unknown. To be perfectly honest,
this is exactly the problem we were having with Ben, right? Like you.
Well, Will Smith is a better actor than Ben Affleck.
That's probably true, actually. But, like, you know, I mean, I get the impression.
And again, nothing to do with skin color. You want to make, quote unquote, you want to make Floyd black. Floyd can be any color. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to me.
If anything, actually, he should probably be Hispanic.
I don't know. Maybe.
But,
whatever.
you know, you pick the actor who does the best job, but Hollywood's always going to pick someone white unless they're a name, basically.
And I, much like his wife being in Gotham, I really feel that this movie would not have gotten made if Will Smith had not signed on.
Yeah,
because the studio needs to have confidence.
They need to have a name.
In a name, and he's really the only name in this movie.
Because Viola Davis can't carry a movie by herself, apparently.
Even though she could, obviously,
10 times over.
She is a.
She's not the Hollywood A-list that they're looking for, I guess.
She's also a woman of color.
Yeah, exactly. Woman being the...
there's a hierarchy here. They'll put their money behind, you know...
a man of color, but not a woman of color.
Not a woman of color. You know, you can't bank on that.
But they'll hire a white woman over a black man. So there you go.
Right. I generally kind of like the tone, like I said, of the way this movie looks.
It should be kind of serious and overwrought.
With brief moments, particularly of black humor.
Black humor, yes.
There should be a lot of gallows humor in this. If you've seen
Suicide Squad.
If you've seen, what is it? What was it called? Assault on Arkham?
Yeah, the animated.
Which was basically the Suicide Squad animated movie.
It was great.
It was basically done in the style of like Guy Ritchie almost. Like, and that's kind of how I wish this would be. Like, I wish it would actually be a little bit more Guy Ritchie-ish.
Yeah.
Or like Shoot 'em Up or something like that. But
the problem with this movie is going to be My So-Called Life is the Joker.
Okay. Let's talk about this.
One, numero uno, the Joker should not be in this movie.
Yeah, there's
period.
no
The Joker is not in Suicide Squad.
There's no source material for this.
Assault on Arkham, the Joker happens to be in it because he's in Arkham, but he's kind of tangential.
Right. This is definitely a studio decision.
They're like, we need a character that people know because no one knows any of the Suicide Squad. Let's put the Joker in because didn't he fuck Harley Quinn once?
Right. And we don't know any of the plot of this movie. We don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't think Joker is in the squad because the Jared Leto scenes are presented.
I would hope not.
Right. Is he the big bad? We don't know.
I don't like Jared Leto.
As an actor generally or in this role?
I don't like him as an actor generally. I don't like it when he opens his mouth.
Okay.
He has James Franco syndrome of I'm an artist.
Okay.
And I'm like, honey, you're kind of pretty, but you're kind of dumb.
I didn't have like the immediate visceral
it's hipster Joker
reaction to or against what I saw as him. I was like, people lost their minds, right? They were like, oh my God, it's going to be better than Heath Ledger.
Whatever.
And I'm just like I'm like, it seems all right. Like, ultimately what you're probably going to get is something mediocre. And
he's kind of doing the ooga booga, you know?
And I'm like, okay, all right. I don't really, like I said, because I know the source material, I don't understand why he is in this.
To make money. And thus it feels very artificial and tacked on, and my intelligence is already being insulted.
And, you know, it seems like with these adaptations, you have to go to the Batman well to make it work, right? Like, so, I mean, Arrow is pretty much Batman with bows and arrows. Mm-hmm. Even though I do think that at least, Amel is doing a different character. All the set dressing, all the plot dressing of Arrow is Batman. Obviously, Batman v
the
Superman.
The villain is Ra's, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. And now we have, the fact that we have Joker in this. I mean, Batman has actually had a presence in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he infiltrates and Waller whoops his ass.
Right.
It's great.
What does she say? We all have secrets, rich boy?
No, that's in the Justice League show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When they're trying to take Long Shadow away, Cadmus.
Right.
And they point their guns at them, and Wonder Woman and Superman are standing behind Batman, and Batman turns to Waller and he goes, "Mine are bigger than yours." and she goes, "We all have secrets, rich boy." And his eyes actually widen, and she knows exactly who he is. Don't fuck with Waller. But Batman tries to infiltrate to collect intelligence on the Suicide Squad, and Waller's like, "Get the fuck out of my office."
It's that great cover of she's backed him against a wall. And it's like in the teens, I think, of Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. And she's just yelling at Bruce, and Batman's like cowering. It's a great cover.
It's kind of got the angry black woman trope, but at the same time, Waller is Waller.
Waller has that. She's the wall, right?
Mm-hmm. And she's not hysterical. She's just like, "Get the fuck out of here. You have nothing to do with this."
Yes.
Very businesslike.
Yeah.
And he's like,
So have you seen the fan theory about what is going on with the Jared Leto Joker? Let me know what you think of this. There's no way to know, but one of the things people notice is in that one of the stills that came out for Batman v Superman is Robin's outfit, and it's got written on it, "The joke is on you."
I saw that too.
Okay, so the speculation is that the Jared Leto Joker is a Robin. You know how in Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd comes back. He's the Red Hood because he is in the original outfit that the Joker was in before he turned into the Joker to fuck with Batman. So there are some people out there who are speculating that is actually what is going on with this version
really
of the
dumb.
Joker. Well, what kind of conflicts with that is that apparently, I don't know what you'll think of this, Zack Snyder's kid, I can't remember his full name, something Snyder, might end up getting cast as Jason Todd.
Do you really want to cast your child as the Robin who dies?
Well, his son has been in all his movies in some capacity, as a kid standing in the background,
but as Jason Todd.
Well, because Jason is the shit kicker Robin.
But the Joker beats him to death with the crowbar.
Well, considering
what are you saying about being a parent?
Well, I think you're stretching that a little bit.
I'm being facetious.
But considering that the Batman in this has obviously been going on for a long time, the implication then would be that if Jason Todd shows up, he would be post-Robin, okay? So
that's stupid. I have no reason to believe that these movies are connected. That's entirely too complex, and I don't want to see that.
Well, there's a scene in the trailer where Batman is on the car with Suicide Squad, so they're obviously connected.
But I don't care. That's the thing. I don't give a shit. The Joker should not be in this movie. End of discussion. I don't care who he is. I don't care that he's got a grill. I don't care that he's hipster Joker. I don't care.
Is he hipster or juggalo?
Both.
He
was a juggalo before it was cool.
There you go.
Ooh, you're crazy. Ooh, you're going to hurt me. I'm sorry, I fell asleep. What was that?
I mean, the one thing about his over-the-top performance is at least the Joker is supposed to be over-the-top.
9 out of 10 white girls can't even right now.
Now, do you actually have hatred for it, or were you just kind of like me, where you're just like, whatever?
I am mildly disgusted.
Mildly disgusted.
And you made me watch both trailers back to back, so I was already riding high on the tide of rage from Batman versus Superman.
Right. Okay, that's fair enough. I mean,
I don't care.
Oh, the one thing I want to say is I think, according to what we've seen of the trailers, it's pretty easy to figure out who's going to die.
Oh, shit.
Slipknot, he's done for. There's no way.
He always dies.
There's no way Slipknot is going to survive the first half an hour of this fucking movie.
Way. Enchantress is in it too, right?
Yeah, I think
she's going to die.
Yeah. No, I think Enchantress is probably going to live.
I actually really hate that storyline.
The first one?
In Ostrander's Suicide Squad. Enchantress, like her taking over a little bit more every single time.
Right.
It's really stupid.
Right. I think El Diablo is done for, too.
Yeah, me too.
And he's, Diablo is not an original member of the Suicide Squad. He was actually part of the New 52 one.
Harley's not going to die. Deadshot's not going to die. Where's Flag?
He's there. He's there.
He might die.
No, Flag. They won't kill Flag.
I hope they don't kill Waller. That would suck.
No, I don't. I think
Waller should be off limits.
Diablo,
Slipknot
are dead. There's Croc too, but Croc is. I doubt they're gonna.
Killer Croc?
Yeah, Killer Croc.
Why?
Why not? Well, Killer Croc was part of the New 52, wasn't he? Oh my God, I can't remember.
He's in parts of the New 52, but why is he in the Suicide Squad?
Oh, you needed more Batman-ness, for one.
Well,
it's cool. You get a monster. I mean, I like the idea.
I refuse to believe that Killer Croc can be motivated by a chip in his neck.
Come on now, though.
Oh, sorry for the spoilers, people.
No, you actually quite like Killer Croc in certain comics, so...
No, but I'm saying, like, why would he care? He would bite it out and kill everybody.
Maybe that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, when he has a baby in Batwoman,
yeah.
I'm waiting for someone to bring that character back, because that's going to happen.
No,
is now canon. There is a creepy half-hybrid crocodile child out there somewhere.
There's going to be some writer who, like, 10 years from now remembers that and goes, I should bring that character
I keep waiting
back.
for someone to bring Sasha back.
Yeah,
because they should.
It'll happen.
She should be in fucking Birds of Prey, for Christ's sake.
She would have been a better choice than
douchebag McGee.
Hipster. What was her name?
Fucking cunt. I can't remember.
She had some. I almost said it was on the tip of my tongue.
Starling. Fuck that character.
People pointed out, that's really good. DC is actually
fuck that character.
You mean the hipster bartender character?
Bitch.
You wish you could fuck.
Yeah.
Like that's all that.
Who
character
betrays
is.
them all?
Right. Turns out she's actually completely like untrustworthy, unlikable, and just horrendous.
Horribly written. That book is a fucking is a shit show.
I had to give it to you because there are parts of it that have to do with Court of Owls, but yeah, and I like Strix. I've said it before. I love Strix.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, I got to give you the recent Secret Six because Strix is in that.
Woman of color.
Yeah. I'm Strix. I kill people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she does.
I don't know if I have anything else.
That movie looks dumb, and Batman vs. Superman makes me want to put my foot through like all of the TVs in the world.
Wow, that's really impressive.
If this movie is actually good, I don't know. We should come up with something I'll do if this is actually good.
That's a great. Well, maybe people could contact us and
come up with something. I will not eat things. I will not jump off of things. I will not put things in or on my body.
So over Dawn of Justice particularly, not Suicide Squad. Because Suicide Squad, could end up being good. It's Dawn of Justice that really looks like a shit show. So if you actually enjoy Dawn of Justice...
And I will admit it if I do.
Contact us with what Krista will do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can contact us at Bloodbath2, numeral 2, podcast@gmail.com.
You can follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter. What's the Twitter?
Bloodbath 2 Podcast.
Bloodbath 2 Pod.
You can follow us on Twitter at Bloodbath 2 Pod.
And we are also on Tumblr and Facebook and YouTube. So if you just
find us, we are everywhere.
Do a search, you'll end up finding us.
Please contact us. I love to talk to people. I really would like to hear what you have to say about Grant Morrison in particular.
Honestly, if you talk to us, we will respond, and we will respond on the air. We don't have a problem with that.
Nope. We ask questions. Be polite.
Questions, reactions, recommendations, requests, because we'll talk about anything.
Be polite in reference to us as people.
Well, the golden rule about it is, like, you can be critical of us. What you have to do is you have to either
prove your work.
You have to be intelligent or entertaining.
Either one.
If you're a combination of both, you jump to the top of the pile.
Either one.
So if you contact us on any of those formats, also remember we are also obviously on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
iTunes is the best way to actually help us out if you want to help. So go
there. Please
rate,
subscribe.
and subscribe.
Write a review. 5 stars.
Yeah, if you like us. If you don't feel, we will debate. We will discuss it.
Go for it.
It's cool. Like I said, just be either entertaining or smart or a combination
The one
of the
thing
two.
I will not respond to well is if you go, that girl's a bitch.
Yeah, we will not actually respond to basic bitchery.
You got to be at least level 2 or above. You can say that girl is a bitch because...
Yeah, I mean... The whole point is we want you to engage with us, and we're not afraid of...
Yeah, please do.
We are not afraid of criticism or
We also want to hear your opinions.
Right.
If you have an opinion of Batman v Superman you think is going to be the best fucking movie ever, tell me why.
Tell me
the
think
things that you like about it.
And we'll tell you why you're wrong.
I really want to know why so many of you are jizzing yourselves over this movie.
They're just towing the company line.
I really want to know. I am fascinated by this.
Are you good?
Yes.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right, so...
We place our faith in Hipster Joker.
I guess so. This is Danny K.
And I'm Imelda Marcos.
Bye. All right, Bloodbathers, that does it for the second part of that 2-part podcast. Like I said, this was an impromptu series. We just kind of sat down because there were some recent news things and had a discussion about them. Our initial plan for this podcast is for it to be a little bit more focused on various things. And each podcast I've been promising you guys that these things are going to be coming, like the DCU Multiverse Crisis. That absolutely will probably be, the next episode that comes out. I'm going to do my best to get that recorded really soon. And I know First is going to come out. I'm still working on the Transmedia Mythologies, one for Alien, Predator, Prometheus, and the Star Wars one. The Star Wars one is probably going to be first, simply because the Alien one is going to require me to spend some money. I'm going to have to buy some resources and stuff for that one, while for the Star Wars one, I pretty much have everything already. So if you don't know what those two are, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be using this podcast to do various series where we look at transmedia mythologies, which basically is when we take these story franchises and we watch them cross over into various mediums. So the first two I picked were Star Wars and Alien/Predator/Prometheus. And the reason these two were chosen for Star Wars, if you remember the very first episode in this podcast, I talked a little bit about this, but I'm just going to repeat it now for those who might not have heard it. Star Wars is probably the best example of a transmedia property because it has decades worth of content in just about every medium you can think of. There are other franchises out there, namely, say, Doctor Who or Star Trek, where they're a little light in certain areas. For instance, Doctor Who doesn't really have a video game presence. Star Trek has, kind of questionable video games. There's a couple good ones out there, but it's not really the powerhouse that Star Wars is. I mean, Star Wars has excellent movies. It has excellent TV thanks to Rebels and Clone Wars. It has an extremely deep and compelling expanded universe via novels. And it's got some of the best video game adaptations, and a couple of the worst, for any kind of, franchise IP. So those are the two things we're going to start out with. So Star Wars will be the first one out. Now, when it comes to that one, I just got to say, I am not actually a huge Star Wars expert. There are a lot of people out there who are. So part of the fun of that podcast for you, the listener, is that I'm going to be discovering a lot of that stuff right then and there. I'm going to basically be playing a game or reading a book or reading comics and taking notes along the way for like a week or 2 weeks, and then I'm going to do the podcast. So I'm kind of discovering all that as we go. So a lot of it's completely new to me. I've read a handful of the novels. I probably have the best experience with the comic books because I've read most of the Marvel original series and nearly everything of the Dark Horse era. So the other one we are going to do is Aliens, Predator, and Prometheus. Now, I picked this one because there were two events. Like you would think I would probably pick Star Trek or Doctor Who first, but yet again, there's a lot of really good video games for the Alien and Predator franchise. It's a little light in the novel area. It has some adaptations, and it has a couple things. And obviously it has no television I can think of. However, it also has expanded into other realms like toys and board games that you don't normally see a lot of other franchises doing. But what really inspired this was two things. Was Dark Horse put out a crossover between those three things, Aliens, Predator, which they've done a million times before, and Prometheus, in a comic book series called Fire and Stone. It'll be a long time before we get to that in the series, but it had a lot of promise, even if it ended up being people running down a hallway for most of it. But it got me thinking more about that universe as a universe. And then there was also a podcast I listened to, which I'm not going to name because I don't really want to, throw crap at other podcasts yet. But they started with, basically, they were going to do the same thing. They were going to do a 3-hour examination of the Aliens franchise specifically. And I just found it, even though it was 3 hours, to be so basic, bare bone, and shallow that I was just really disappointed. And so I wanted to go a little bit deep with my examination of it. Because there's, just as there are in a lot of mythologies, there's a lot of things we can read into these culturally, historically, technologically, that I think a lot of people are going to miss simply because they want to talk about how cool pulse rifles sound. And it's going to be all those three things because they're obviously tied together. Even though, hardcore Aliens fans are going to insist that the Predator universe is kind of separate, and that's fine. But for me, I was looking at it and I was going, it should be done all together for one reason above all, which is that the video games crucially rely on the Predator. Some of the best games involving the Aliens world really is Aliens and the Predator games. So they go hand in hand. So, as I'm doing this, I'm going to be replaying a lot of these games, and, those are games I mostly want to replay. So I just thought it was appropriate that we do that. Plus Prometheus, which is now we can talk a little bit about the format these are going to take. Star Wars is going to be done chronologically, okay? So it's going to be done with the expanded universe. We're going to start with the earliest galactic history things I can find. And in that Star Wars episode, you're going to hear exactly how that plans out. I've already written the script for that. The Alien one is going to be different. We're not going to go chronologically. We are going to start with release dates, so when things get released. I basically did not want to start with a lot of the prequel things like Prometheus, like the AVP movies, because I wanted to start with better quality. So to me, the Alien movie is one of the seminal, most important movies of all time. It's one of my personal favorites. So I wanted to basically start with that. So my idea was we're going to do this by release date. So we're going to do Alien, and then we're going to do Aliens, and then there's a couple video games. So if you see, these two are going to be formatted a little differently. Hopefully those will be coming up next. You can look forward to the latest DC one, the DC Multiverse Crisis. That should be coming up soon, and the Star Wars one should be coming up soon. In that time, yes, you're probably going to get another one of me and my co-host talking a whole lot of smack. So I can't promise when they will exactly be out. I can't promise that we won't have 5 episodes like this first. Who knows? We try to play it a little loose here at the Bloodbath. But that is mostly it. We look forward to hearing from you. Yet again, please contact us. Get in touch. We want to talk to you. Until next time, thank you.
Kim, you want M, Mr. Luthor? Straight up. So, there you go, M.
M as in moron, notice? No, it's N.
Oh.
N as in Neanderthal, nincompoop, nitwit, and L as in ladder.
This ladder, Mr. Luthor, come right up. I didn't see because I